Well, hello everyone, and with me today I have Jason Liosatos. Thank you for joining me, Jason. How are you?
Hello, everybody. Great to meet you all. And also, thanks, Guy, firstly, for your fantastic work that you're doing. And how am I? Well as one can be in this global casino mental asylum that's become normal. That's my standard answer. If I felt normal, I'd be really worried about myself. You should feel really, and we can
Yeah.
obviously we'll dig into that as you wish.
Do you feel like you're on edge a bit?
See you again?
Do you feel like you're on edge?
On edge. God,
Yeah.
that's the
Mm.
understatement of the century. If you don't feel like you're on edge, again, you've either been completely put to sleep and sedated, which the system does do that to you. It's like a big spider that sedates you. And we can talk about that. I gave an analogy in my book, Guy. I was talking about. I know I'm going to go off on a spinning tangent here, if you don't mind a minute.
No,
But
no, you carry on.
one of the chapters in my book was called "The Student Loan Trap," and I looked out of my window one night, and there was a street light, and it had a spider's web over it, and flies were hurling themselves towards the web to get to the light. And I thought, oh my God, that's it. And I thought, that's it. The light is the exams, the future, the success, the job, the money. And the spider, like, lures you. So my analogy was the government lures you into the trap by using the light as a lure. You get a job and you'll be a success. But the spider cocoons the flies and eats them within 2 weeks. The student loan trap is like the web that you've got to go into to get to the qualifications, and then the government cocoons you and feeds off your energy for the rest of your life because you can't pay it back. But that's another subject. But going back to what you said about being on edge, absolutely, I'm on edge. I've never felt not on edge, and that's good. It means you're alive. It means you're awake. It means you're still spiritually awake. So if you're in pain, good. People come into my shop and they say, God, I'm so depressed. I say, that's exactly how you should feel, because that's a natural symptom from a healthy spirit, body, and mind that's in a system that's driving it mad. That's good. You don't want to stay feeling like that. But most people feel like that, Guy, and they don't talk about it. It's one of the greatest secrets of all, because there's an amazing capacity inside each person to endure suffering, pain, boredom, and punishment. It's a brilliant system put in there by nature or by God or whatever you want to talk about it. But people keep it secret. They're in pain. And you get used to it. You go to school. And I could go on and on and on about that, as you know. So I'll stop.
Do you think you can feel it when you're outside, though? That for me, since 2020, people seem a little bit more edgy themselves. It's not just me. I can feel it in the air.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the reasons I think is whether you won't go on about that here, I can speak about it if you want, whether you took the vaccination or not, regardless of whether you did or not, you know that finally people know that the government will and can at any moment lock you down. And lockdown comes from that word from a penitentiary in America. Lockdown, they lock the prison down. And that's what they did. So yeah, I think that did put people on edge because it's like, whoa, what could happen next? At any moment, there could be a boom, and the prison doors will close again. But that's another huge subject. I mean, I love talking about these kinds of things. So I'll start wherever you want, mate. We can go anywhere you want with all this. You were asking. We were talking earlier about the about. I think we mentioned that, yeah, about that we're sort of looking for people after being in school. We're looking for someone to tell us what to do and control us, be it any politician,
Yeah.
president, pope, or priest. We're always looking for someone to spoon feed us because that's how we've been programmed in school. We've been almost disempowered, almost our spirits have almost been so broken that I believe now we're in a time, because I love the shamanic work and things. I think it's like soul retrieval. That's what people are really looking for now. That's why there's so many people going on ayahuasca sessions, going on meditation retreats, going to try and remember, dismember, relocate, dislocate back to themselves, because everyone feels it on some level that that has been taken away from them, and we want that back. So it's a very exciting time, really.
I think a lot of people woke up in 2020. I think that woke not enough people up. A lot of, too many, in my opinion, went along with the narrative. But for most people, I think that gave them a good shove. The ones that were on the fence that started to question a few things but didn't talk about it, that probably pushed them over the edge. But when did you wake up? When did you realize that things weren't quite what we've been told.
What, generally in my life, you mean?
Yeah,
How far back does it go, you mean?
yeah.
Oh, I've been tortured by it since I was a tiny kid. There's no. I know I should laugh, but it is hilarious. This tragedy, tragicomical. I always knew there was something wrong, and I'm not saying that to be clever, like I'm this awake person. I'm not saying that. The more I know, the more I know I need to know. I'm not saying that I'm this awake person. I don't say that. Ask my wife. She'll tell you how unawake I often am. But when I was a kid, I always felt there was something wrong. I spoke to David Icke about this on one of the shows I did with him, and he said he was the same. He was always the kid looking out the window, and the teacher saying, "Concentrate, Ike," or "Concentrate, Liosatos." I can't concentrate on being in this room all day, listening to someone going on about maths or history or this. I always felt, to be dead honest with you, when I look at in retrospect, Guy, I always felt, and I couldn't work it out. But when I think back to how I did feel, I knew why I felt like that. Why? Because I knew I was being sedated and put to sleep, and I knew that my soul was being messed with and my freedoms were being encroached upon. That's why I hated school, and I used to run away. I used to wait around the lane. My dad would go to work. We'd watch his car go up the road, and then we'd go in the house and play snooker, smoke cigarettes, and talk about girls, because mine wasn't even a boys and girls school. They split us up at the prime of our sort of horniness, if you like. So what did we all do? We all used to do is go up to girls' school that was up the road and hang around there outside there like dogs on heat, because that's what they did. They split us up. I know I shouldn't be making this a comedy, but it is a bloody comedy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt very early, guys, something's wrong here. Could never work out what it was. And of course, as I got older, I started looking into things. I went to different countries. I looked at the apartheid in Cape Town. I worked there for a while. I married a black lady there. I'm not with her now. We're still good friends. And that whole thing opened up to me about the control and, the English going here, the Queen doing this and this. And so it just started sort of giving me a sniff of the smelling salts. Then I met some great shamans and some mystics, and I've had a lot of great help. And more and more and more, the smelling salts has been shoved under my nose. But I'm still as daft as a box of spanners. I don't know my times tables mathematically and things, but I know one thing: this system is slavery, and it's the great elephant in the room. It really, really is. And the great, amazing thing about it is no one wants to talk about it, because
Yeah.
you've got to say, did you know you were a slave and you've been controlled and enslaved since you were a young person? Don't tell me I'm stupid. No, I'm not saying you're stupid, just badly conditioned. So no one wants to talk about the great elephant in the room, and that is that this world has been turned into a prison planet. There's no doubt about it. And the shackles are getting tighter and tighter, and people are just going to go along with it. It's unbelievable. Now, I wouldn't mind, guys, sorry, I'm on a bit of a roll here. I wouldn't mind if they were just building their own prison and being the bricklayers of their own penitentiary, if you like, but them building their own prison and not wanting to look at the prison wardens and how it's all worked out. That creates my prison as well, and people's prison who haven't been born yet even. So I'm very excited about this. I'm not angry, but I'm very excited and troubled that we better hurry up and create something different, because at the moment we're being herded into a penitentiary, a digital penitentiary, an AI penitentiary, which is going to make George Orwell's book look absolutely funny, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theorists, that's what it is. It's the
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing I don't like about that term, when people say you're a conspiracy theorist in a sort of derogatory way, because I think, hold on a minute, have you actually thought about what conspiracy is? That's the government trying to do something to shaft the rest of us, and you don't want to know about it. Is that what you're saying? Because anything that's got a conspiracy attached to it is at least worth looking at a bit more than doom scrolling on your mobile phone on Facebook. Surely 5 minutes of your time just to debunk it, even. But these conspiracies aren't put out there by people like yourself for fun. They're put out there to warn others. You're trying to help people you've never even met. So what do you think led to the Guardian and the media attacking you? Because the BBC did as well, didn't they? Didn't
Yeah,
the BBC get the hit
yeah.
job on you?
With me, they did a hit job on Darren Smith as well, who was the guy who a very amazing guy who does the Light newspaper.
Yeah,
I was in Glastonbury today, and they were giving it out, handing it out there. And so yeah, what made them do the hit piece on me was well, because I was one of the people, I suppose, like David Icke, and I've done lots of shows with David Icke and Dr. Shelley Tenpenny, all sorts of people I've had on my show years ago, and then it was banned, of course, off YouTube.
yeah,
uh, they always attack the people that are trying to shine a light in their faces. And years ago, let's make mistake about it. Everybody should know the truth of this. Years ago, before the internet and newspapers and stuff like that, can you imagine how many people were speaking out against government? Well, look at them all. I'm not putting myself in the bracket of Martin Luther King and things, but all of the people that spoke out generally got the chop. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
nowadays, it's a bit more tricky for them to do that without being found out because of the light of truth. There was always a molasses slowness, sticky time lag between when things were done and the truth was shone on them. I was with Tony Benn outside the American embassy demonstrating against the Iraq lies that they had weapons of mass destruction. And then it took years for that to catch up and people to realize the truth of that, by which time they thought, well, we don't want to talk about that anymore, let it go. Why go on about that? But it's the same people in control. So in answer to your question, I would say because I was speaking out, they hit me with the usual thing, which is the anti-Semitic torpedo, which usually works because I've been talking about Gaza for ages, for years,
yeah,
when everyone else was sorry to have a go at people, but when people were scared to talk about it. I was talking about that years ago because I related it to my time in South Africa when I was shot out there for mouthing off about the apartheid there and the terrible apartheid of these people whose country it wasn't even theirs, came in and enslaved the blacks, right?
yeah,
More complex than that. Let me just put a little thing in there. My father said to me once, don't be angry, Jason. If it was the other way around and it was the black people coming to the shores of England with bigger guns, they would have enslaved the whites just the same. I said, rubbish. In retrospect, I got to say, he was probably right. What he said, it's a human failing. That's what it is. Very good, wise words from my father there. But yeah, no, I was talking about that years ago, relating that to the Gaza situation. So they thought, let's get him, let's shut him up. Let's go and do an interview with him in his studio in Totnes, bring all the lights in and all the cameramen from the BBC. And people said to me, why did you do it, you idiot? You knew they were going to crucify you. I said, yes, but by crucifying me, they expose themselves, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Same with the Guardian. I had people like not like, but people I'd relate like you who are doing great work. One of them came in the gallery after I did the Guardian, when George Monbiot tried to crucify me, and I let him. Then they said, "Why did you do it, Jason?" Quite angrily, they said, "You're giving us all a bad name, right?" So I was giving all the people in Totnes, the truthers, if you like, who were marching up and down with their banners, right, in the street. One of them, I won't say their name. She said, "You're giving us a bad name." Giving you a bad name? I said, "I'm putting my neck on the line for your bloody grandchildren." Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm working for people who haven't been born yet. So that is a sort of roundabout answer to your question. That then the Times did a thing on me as well. So it's the usual thing: anti-vaxxer, anti-Semitic, uh, like calling you a conspiracy fictionist because you say there's geoengineering, which is clear all the bloody
yeah, yeah,
and something else I can't remember, but that's the usual ones they hit you on them. But I want to warn everybody here now. Honestly, I really do. I'm sorry. One of my analogies I love is, and I've borrowed it from a great mentor of mine 35 years ago, Charles Muses. He said that, and it's the truth, when a baby egg pecks its way out of a baby chick pecks its way out of an egg, the poisons build inside the egg to the point which triggers the baby bird to peck. The poisons trigger it to peck. If you all want to stay in your somnambulance now and sleepwalk into this prison that's being built for you, yeah, you're going to die inside. You're going to spiritually die, yeah, literally. And that is what this system is doing now in a positive sense. The poisons are building in the world, Guy, of the further slavery, the AI, the control, the digital slavery, etc. The punishment that you'll get if you don't go along with it, that is the poisons which are building inside that egg. And if you don't try and peck your way out of it, or build something else, you're gonna die inside. And that's why people are so angry and frustrated, because they're dying inside. Their bills are huge. There are obviously echelons of people with loads of money who aren't in that bracket, but it's excruciating for people, Guy, and people feel it, and they come in my shop and tell me about it, right? I don't disclose who tells me about it, but that's what it is. It's based on fear, and fear is paralytic to consciousness and development and blossoming in a human being. I get excited about it. Look at me. Why should I worry about it? You know, like Nick Rockefeller said to Aaron Russo in that famous interview, which is still on YouTube. Alex Jones interviewed Russo. Russo had cancer then, and he was dying. So he told people what Nick Rockefeller said to him. Nick Rockefeller said, "Why do you worry about people, Aaron? People are probably thinking about me. Why do I worry?" Well, because he cares about people. We all care about people. But that ethical alarm bell and that moral, beautiful empathy inside people has been choked off, because we only care about each other and ourselves now, most people. So he said to Aaron Russo, "Why do you care?" He said, "We're going to microchip everybody, Aaron." Nick Rockefeller is still on YouTube. We're going to microchip everybody. Total control. That's what we're going to do. So what I'm saying here is that it's excruciating, and most people feel it, but they don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to.
Yeah.
They don't want to face their prison. It's like being in a prison and going around saying, "Hey guys, we're in prison. Don't want to talk about it."
Yeah.
Shut up. And they will attack you and tell on you. If you're talking about the prison, there's people that will actually want you in a bigger prison to shut you up. And it's happened to all the people. Talk about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Gandhi. I'm not in that bracket of people, but I'm just saying, in the lower echelons, that's what happens to people. So what we're in now, Guy, I know I'm going on a bit here. What we're in now is a recovery. It's recovery. We're in a recovery from a terrible, terrible wound and a terrible thing that's happened to humanity for thousands of years. It's been going on for a long time. The same control and the same slavery. But people now, I call it a dimension end. There's a spiritual lift now that most people feel inside, but they still don't want to talk about it, But if you don't, you're like that baby bird, you'll die inside, and people feel it. Well, then we go on to solutions, but that's another whole thing.
You mentioned Nick Rockefeller.
Mm.
And you said he said we are going to microchip them. Who do you think he's talking about when he says we?
Well, that's a whole huge thing, isn't it? Because I've had this conversation with people. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Like Paul Craig Roberts has been on my show many times. A lot of people don't know him, but he's an amazing guy. PaulCraigRoberts.org, and he was in the Treasury with Ronald Reagan. That's a long time ago. So he knows about government and how it works. And I've said to him on my show a couple of times, "Paul, they're like the mafia." And he stopped me dead in my tracks. He said, "No, they're not like the mafia, the governments, Jason. They're worse than the mafia. With the mafia, you know where you are. You can negotiate. You can, but with this government, they're the biggest lying, cheating." But so back to your question, Nick Rockefeller even said to Alan Russo, he said, "Let me give you an example, Alan. Who do you think started the women's liberation movement?" And he said, "Well, the women." He said, "No, they didn't. We did. We wanted the women in work and their kids in school." So it's always been like that. Who are they in the higher echelons? Well, you can go up and up and up. Most people talk about just the people that are in bodies, don't they? The Rockefellers, the this, the that, all the other people. And then there's the layers of, the people with Elon Musk and all these kinds of people. And then people say, no, but it's off-world entities and stuff like that. Now, I don't talk about that kind of thing very much. There's a lot of people who do, but I do sort of know that exists because I felt it. I've done shamanic work, and I know there's a whole level of reality beyond this. And I don't talk about it a lot, Guy, because it'll open up a whole new kind of criticism and worms for me, but I am going to soon. I know I can sense it, and I can get things from that realm, right? I can, and I can prove it, right? But it's a big subject, and I don't know if I'm the right guy to talk about that really, because I'm probably not qualified enough to talk about that. David Icke would be a better person to talk about that. David, I've had him on my show many times. I've met him personally. A lot of people say, "Oh, he's on the other side." Alex Jones is on the other side. Everyone's on the other side. I'm supposed to be a double agent. People say in town, I'm working for Israel. Yeah. God. So But it's a huge lattice, yeah, a huge lattice. Netanyahu, the ones above him, blah 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 blah, and often people ask me, Jason, is it all a pantomime? Is Putin in on this? Are they all just pantomime players and puppets being dangled for us all to think that they're all against each other so they can bring in this world government and this huge sort of digital slavery and prison that we're all going to be confined in? Well, the truth is, maybe it is a bit puppet show. I honestly, I don't know. People ask me a lot. I think all bets are off. I don't trust Trump. I don't trust Musk. People have been, I think it's a bit of a shame that a lot of the people that were in this truth movement or whatever, or better world for humanity, has thrown it all onto Trump's shoulders. Oh my God, Trump's going to save us. Musk is going to save us. David Icke screaming for the rooftops. They're just building your prison. That's what they're doing. The AI, the digital slavery. That's what they're doing. So, I don't know all the nuances of it, Guy, but I do know it's a huge lattice, and everyone's contributing in a certain way. Even the people further down, bankers in jobs in bankers. Then there's the people above them. So, in one sense, we're all the bricklayers of this prison. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the tragedy of it. We're all the bricklayers of this prison. Every time we get up in the morning and go to work, and every time we accept our a pittance for the jobs we do, and my wife once said, Jason, they don't pay you too much or you wouldn't come back next month. It's very well worked out. Most people are just about paying their bills. So most people every day we're all playing into it. Now a lot of people will say, like people that you know and maybe follow, until we stop and say no, it's going to carry on and it's going to get worse. But that's easy to say. But when you've got loads of bills and some people have kids to feed and you've got a mortgage to pay for, you've got a rent. That's like I went back to in the beginning, when we're so programmed in school to accept authority and actually be terrified of authority, because you leave school and then you've got a boss you're scared of, because if they fire you, you're homeless, right? So it runs really, really deep, Guy, and it's very, very concerning and very worrying. And that's why I always come back to the same solution. We've got to create new systems, as me and you have discussed, independent of government control while you still can, because soon I don't think they'll let you.
Do you think that that's the solution, that is what has to happen now?
I think it's the solution that I keep coming back to again and again and again, because this system has got a momentum, right? There's a million analogies, but a couple of analogies I like. It's almost like these psychopaths, who aren't quite psychopaths, they're very clever people. Whatever echelon you think it all goes to, whether it's off-world entities or whether it's just the people you can see on the screen and on the stage, yeah? It's like they're the captains on the bridge, and there's all the humans in the engine room, right, if you like, and they just keep saying, "Stop the boilers, shut up, do this," you know. And even if you're trying to change the trajectory of that ship, you've got to sort of somehow take over the. Most people are compromised that go into government, and if they're not initially, then they generally become compromised, or they don't get into those positions of power. So, or you could make an analogy like humanity is like a big, massive airplane. The people in the cockpit, you can't get to them. You're all just virtually helpless.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're all going to buy a load of tents and be gypsies. I've been a gypsy. I've lived on narrowboats, tents. I've lived on old boats. I've lived in a car. When I met my wife, I was living under the sports centre in Bath in a car. I've tried my best to get out of the system, but we have to create new systems. And our website, as you know, are not promoting it because it's just in an embryonic state. It's waiting. These kinds of systems are waiting within the womb of possibility to be born, Guy. But the system's got its big jackboot on the cervix of that. And they don't want that to happen. They're not saying, hey, we want humans to be free. We want free systems. It's crazy. So we've been trying to do that for years with this natural earth eco living.com thing we've got. It's come tantalizingly close. Then people start squabbling again. We've had people in my lounge in full lockdown there's millions of pounds in the lounge. If people would sell their houses and, get rid of their gold but for many multifaceted reasons, it just didn't happen. But, and it is, people find it hard to live together, and the system is laughing at people who can't do that. But if you could just create a few little templates where people didn't have to pay all their lives for a house, had water, electricity, and really inspiring communities, not hippies sat around the fire smoking ganja, which is fine, that there's a place for that, but inspiring communities that people from all around the world want to come and see, then you'd have people all over the world selling their houses and wanting to be a part of something so inspirational. And you could buy the farms up all around the world before Bill Gates does, and before they.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's your website, isn't that's what because you've got your own website.
Yeah.
Is that just your artwork on there?
My website,
JasonLiosatos.com.
jasonliosatos.com is the one where I've got my shows and my book and stuff like that on. But jasonliosatosart.com is my website with my art. And naturalearthecoliving.com is the other website that we've had, again, waiting within the womb of possibility to be born for a long time. But I think we've gone so mad as a species. I'm sorry to say it, we've gone mad as a species. That's another big elephant in the room. That we can't seem to come together and decide on anything. There's always squabbling. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Give me 20 trillion billion pounds now, guy. I'd say goodbye to you. I'd buy every farm I could for that money in the world, every one of them. Yeah, and if the farmers were struggling, I'd go and speak to them and say, listen, you can help us. We want to do something. You know, and that's what I do. I'd start creating new systems. It sounds so huge and impossible, and the fact that it sounds impossible is tragic, because that shows you how enslaved we've become. We're all living in little streets and little houses, paying rent, paying mortgages. It's become normal. It's insane. We're paying for water. We're paying for food. When I say that, people say, well, we got to pay for water. If a species came from another planet and said, you're paying for water to drink on this utopian planet? Are you serious? Have you gone mad, all of you? You know, so I get quite frustrated about it, Guy, because it's a terrible thing, you know? It's a terrible thing, but people don't want to look at it. People just really don't want to look at it. It's like, you know, it's based on punishment and rewards, and it's like people don't want to see it, you know? It's a dreadful attack on our human condition. It's a dreadful thing.
Do you provide any solutions in your book?
My book, one of the greatest solutions I provide in my book is, I would say, guidelines to finding the nothingness in ourselves and the peace, because without that we've got no chance. You know, we're not taught in school to find that tremendous power and magnificence and shamanic ability within ourselves, where we can change things with thought, where we can manifest things almost, right? That's one of the main thrusts of my book, is reminding people, not trying to be this wise guru at all. Ask my wife, I always say. I don't put myself on a pedestal at all. But it's just the thing that stuff that I've learned. And it's just, that's the basic solution for me, is finding sanity and finding our tremendous power, magnificence, and abilities as the great gods, if you like, that we are. And we've been robbed of that. And like I said earlier, fear and anxiety, stress, worry is paralytic to consciousness and development in a human being. It's like you're a caterpillar, you don't become a butterfly, because your metamorphic glands of transformation and magnificence are choked off when you're a child. And that is where it all starts in school. They choke you off.
Yeah.
They make you frightened. They make you fear authority and look to someone to tell you what to do. And you leave school, and I'm sorry to say this, but most people, take it for what you want, everybody, most of us, myself included, are little girls and boys who really have never really become what we should be. We're subservient little girls and boys who are, if we've been to school, which most of us have, we're so damaged and wounded and broken and spiritually dislocated that is what we all are. We're little pathetic girls and boys. We are. We're magnificent. We've still got that magnificent thing inside us, but it's like being covered over with so much fear and so much anxiety and stress that it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. Yeah. And someone once said to me that, and I thought it was beautiful. They said, we're not psychologically balanced and responsible enough yet to have that power back, right? Because back to that analogy, there's always a molasses slowness, a sticky slowness, time lag between decision and its fruition. So you make a decision to do something and it takes time, which is so frustrating. Yeah. And that stops most people doing it. But he said that that time lag is humans' protection against itself in its current condition. And I agree with him. I've had things happen to me that literally you're thinking it happens. It's like, wow, you know that guy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I can be in my shop and you speak about someone, yeah, someone needs a flat. Yeah, well, but someone will walk in, it's like, wow, you know. So
Well,
that
I've had it happen in your shop. I've come in to talk to you, and there's been someone in there that I saw that I didn't know 5 minutes earlier in a village a few miles away,
oh yeah,
and
that's fun.
spoke
Yeah,
to them briefly, and then 5 minutes later, I'm in your shop and they're there too, and we
yeah,
both know you.
that was right. That was right.
I've watched it happen, and before when you've been in, people have just suddenly walked in while you've been talking about them,
Yeah,
and I think we have this connection, don't we? Almost like we can sense things like our sixth sense, but it's been stifled. Our growth in every aspect has been stifled, like you say, from indoctrination right at the very beginning. Your book's The Emergency Transformation of Human Beings,
yeah,
um, as the solution to the world's problems.
yeah. Well, it is the solution to the world's problem.
Yeah.
Transformation is a funny word. Or maybe I shouldn't have used that word. I was going to get the cover of the book changed to something like um, finding strength, happiness, and something a truth or something in a world gone mad. Yeah, that would have sold more because I made it a little bit radical 13 years ago. The emergency transformation of human beings. Ooh, most people don't want to read a book that's called that. So I paid for that in a way. But in that book, people say, "Oh my God, it's more. It's now. It's almost prophetic. It's not prophetic. It's obvious. You look at where we've been and where we are and where we're going. You don't have to be a prophet. You can just see where we're going if we stay on that trajectory." Or if we're pulled along on that trajectory, it's obvious what's going to happen. Yes, there's random events and everything, but most of the things we see today in reality, if you want to call it reality, because we're not even solid under a microscope and knows that table, but most of the outcomes you see now are consequences from previous decisions made with or without vision and wisdom by usually psychotic, greedy, power lustful leaders. Yeah. So I, in that book, I talk a lot about this kind of thing that we've outgrown our shoes and people feel it, and I just give people a flavour of their magnificence. Really, the first chapter is called A New Epoch, and I explain in that chapter that the word epoch is a Greek word, which comes from the word epoche, which actually means stoppage. So when I talk of a new epoch in my book, I use the phrase stoppage because I believe that if anyone who's had kids, you can see that there's a point where the pregnancy the pregnancy stop and the birth begins. And I believe we're in that critical moment now as humanity where we're at that point of stoppage where something else wants to be born, has to be born if we're to become free and find our true magnificence as humans, which most people have never even had a whiff of. Yeah. Most people don't even know they're psychic, that they can make things happen with mind, manifest things into manifest them. Most people don't know that. So in my book, I try to remind people about that, and remind people that we've also come to the end of a cycle. It's like a dimension end.
Yeah.
It's like we're like aluminium beer cans being recycled all the time. And people feel it deep in their minds now. I don't want to be a beer can anymore. I feel different. Something's changing. Yes, because your spirit and there's something else taking place on the planet, which I'll talk about again on another show because it's very complex. And I don't know, I'm not an expert at it, but there's something changing in people and they can feel it. It's like they've outgrown their shoes. Yes, they're tight. They hurt, don't they? Yes, they do. Isn't it excruciating? Yeah. Well, because we got to become something else. That's why something more magnificent. We can't carry on like this, So it's like a higher development. It's a critical moment in history, and that's what I talk about in my book. But not in a doom and gloom way. I hope I put it across in an exciting way. But I do talk about our magnificence. Right, you can't just help people to remember their magnificence and that kind of thing unless you tell them what takes it away. A lot of the people in the spiritual development circles do people a great disservice with that. They tell people how to grow, and they'll go on all these retreats and then they'll come back to their job, which they hate. And next minute they know they hate their lives again. So you've got to tell them what makes them feel so frustrated and empty first before you can help them to find out about it. So when someone comes in my shop and they say, I feel so depressed, someone the other day wanted to kill themselves, I said, well, actually, that's exactly how you should feel. That is a natural symptom from a healthy body, mind, and spirit, a magnificent one in a system, born in a system that's driving it mad. You're in the same job all the time. You've got a boss all the time. You're scared of getting fired. You're scared of paying bills. Of course you feel like that. Now, you don't want to stay feeling like that. You've got to do stuff to transcend that. But until you realize that that's how you really, the symptoms of living in a mad world that's driving you mad, of debt and fear and slavery, until you understand that, like Gurdjieff said, you can't escape a prison until you understand it or see it. And that's the big elephant in the room. People don't want to see that guy because it's too painful. And if they don't want to see that, then they don't know why they've got the pain in the first place. It's very simple, but it's so simple, it's almost ridiculous, and people don't want to see it, because they know that intrinsically, I think they know that there's no way out, but because they're so trapped and they can't step off the hamster wheel, or it all goes tits up and they're homeless like that. There's no safety net. So with the systems I'm talking about, one of the systems I'd like to help provide is a safety net for people. So if they become depressed or they can't pay their bills for their own stupidity or not, there's somewhere they can go and still be respected,
Yeah.
and still be helped, not back into the system, the same system that destroyed them, into another system. And so it's a higher evolutionary process, this now. That's what it is. And it sounds very spiritual, but I get people coming in my shop that say the same things all the time, Guy, and it's so frustrating. Not so much now. Oh, Jason, everything's happening perfectly. You don't have to worry about anything. It's just a cycle we go through, and then what you resist persists, and we need pain, we need pain to grow, and that's the way the whole spiritual thing's worked out, and then we go through the cycle, and no, you don't want to get stuck in a revolving door again and again and again and again. Let's see it and let's move through it and let's create something different. But there's a lot of people who don't want that to happen, and power is like a surgeon's scalpel. In the right hands, it can do fantastic work, and in the wrong hands, it can really damage people. So we've got this power play thing. And generally, the people with the power want more power, and they want to control more people, and they want to take over everywhere. It's like savage. It's unbelievable. You hear about Trump, I'm taking over Greenland. He's still on one of those reality shows. You do the tariffs, or we'll double it. It's like, no, I was hoping for Trump. I was never one of those people that said he's going to save us, but I was hoping that it was going to be at least a big smelling salts, which it is, to bring people around from their trance to realize what's going on, because he's exposing a lot of the people who are doing bad things, but he's still surrounded by them. And he's still and he's still controlled by Israel, or whatever that dimensional.
Absolutely.
But I've also said to people, Guy, I know I'm getting a bit carried away here, but I've also said to people, I do see the bigger picture. Maybe if it wasn't for Israel, or all the people who call me anti-Semitic, love this one. Maybe if it wasn't for Israel and they're controlling the Middle East, and they'll kill any brown-skinned person who dares have the temerity to stand up to them, right? Maybe if it wasn't for them, then the radical Islam and Muslims would take over everywhere and turn us all into slaves and force them to, So what I'm saying is this one giant mental asylum, and until we realize we've gone mad as a species and this world's become ridiculous, there's no borders if you go up in an airplane and look down. There's no borders from space. We're one big giant family. And that's why, as I showed you earlier, it's probably time to show it. There's my painting. There's my painting. Look.
You painted that, yeah.
Of all those people crying, all those soldiers. You know why? Because they're killing their brothers and bloody sisters. That's why. They're killing their own family. There's no borders from space. There's no such thing as different countries and religions. It's grunts from a bloody voice box. So stop it, everybody. And if they they want to have you as a conscripted soldier to go and do their dirty, filthy fighting in any country, tell them if you, Mr. Starmer, or if you, Mr. Trump, or you, Mr. Netanyahu, you go at the front with the gun and we'll follow you, right? Bullshit. They'd never do it because they're cowards.
No, I totally agree. Very well said.
Sorry.
That was very well said. So your book, they can get that on your website.
Yeah, well, actually, people will say, "Oh, what a sellout!" Well, they can get it on Amazon. He's on Amazon. Look, I'm sorry, I'm a human being living in the world. I self-published. It went on Lulu publishing.com. I believe you can still get it on there. It was on my website. Then all of a sudden, it went on Amazon. It was like, because someone had tried to put it on Amazon for me years and years and years ago. And somehow or other, it's now on Amazon, and Amazon print it. I didn't even know about it because it says printed by Amazon. Yeah, they didn't even ask me, So I don't know how that happens. I've no idea. But people say, "Oh, you're a sellout." Oh, look, guys, I'm a human being, yeah.
But you're sorry, Jason. I did the same thing. My books are available on Amazon. I had to do it through Amazon because I didn't have the money to be able to print 1,000 bloody books. So for me, it was an easier way of doing it. And at the time, we'd just moved house, and a load of things went horribly wrong. So I couldn't afford to self-publish. I had to take that route, and I had to get it out there. And there aren't many options. I mean, I bounced it off a couple of publishers. They wouldn't touch what I wrote about. They didn't want to be associated with what I was saying, because I'm talking about the government lying, and not just that, the people above them having done it for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so I don't think you sold out. And the people that say you've sold out, you've bought from Amazon, they will have a mortgage with a high street bank. They will fill up at BP down the road, or somebody else who causes oil spills and devastation across the planet. They will have all sorts of products in their house that were built by children in sweatshops that sleep on the floor and earn 5p a week. And I think if you're going to be, if you really want to criticize me or people like you for having to resort to putting stuff on Amazon to get it out there, then tweet about it on your phone made by a 5-year-old that sleeps on the floor for £1 a week. Tweet about it on your brand new iPhone that you desperately wanted and thought nothing about it. Or perhaps you'll buy a Tesla or an electric car where kids are having to mine this shit out the ground and dying in the process, and then dump the battery in the sea after 10 years when it can't be replaced refurbished. So it's a very difficult line to walk. That if you're going to start saying you've sold out, you've done this, or your products on Amazon or whatever, then you need to be coming from a very, very pure place. And I think it's one of those let he without sin cast the first stone kind of well said, analogy.
And I want to get you on my show. And I want you to expound. I'm gobbing off you, but I want you on my show, and I want to talk to you about history and things. That next time we're going to have a chat about that. But actually, absolutely right. It is very difficult to be a human being here. I remember one of the great shamans I met in Cape Town when I was there, who helped me so much. He blew my mind. One of those people that could read your mind when he was speaking to you, and it was like, wow, I was terrified. A long time ago, I don't know, 40-something years ago, but. I never forget, I made the big mistake of putting him on a pedestal. I thought, wow, he's so enlightened. And then I'll never forget it. I got to meet him somewhere else, and this lady said, "Do you want some cheesecake?" And he said, yes. And can you imagine? I thought, he's eating cheesecake. He's supposed to be enlightened, It's like, what he shouldn't eat? Like, come on. It's like, look, it's really difficult being a human being. It's very difficult to be pure. I've tried it, Guy, I didn't eat sugar, coffee, tea, booze, blah, 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 for years when I was living on an narrowboat years ago. And I was almost felt too pure to be on this planet. It was like almost you're just floating away. You can hardly have dinner with anybody. It's like without being the wacko person who doesn't eat anything. It's like, oh, he's this, or he's a vegan, or he's this. And then I couldn't do it anymore. And typical of me. Like I told you earlier on, I tasted some chocolate one day. It's my God. And then I had coffee, and it was like, oh my God, and then I had booze. I was like, oh my God. And then I was on the porn, and then I just went crashing into the ground like an out of control airplane, because I was trying to be too pure. So I hold things very lightly now, like you said about casting the first stone. Well said for that, I like that, we're all trying our best. And people say, if you're doing stuff to help people, you shouldn't even be paid,
Yeah.
a healer or a psychic or a shaman. It's like, no, but it's okay to be paid for dropping bombs on people, yeah,
Yeah.
and selling drugs, It's like, wow, man, or
So,
lying to people.
so does that apply to a heart surgeon and your GP down at the local doctor's surgery? If they're doing good things for people, they shouldn't be paid either. Where do you draw the line? Do the fire service not get paid? Paramedics, do we not pay them? Just because you're trying to get the truth out there doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a position automatically to dedicate all of your time to do that and not earn a penny.
Yeah.
Again, it's people coming from, you'd have to be coming from a very, very good position. I would have thought if you were able to get the information out there, to publish books, to do talks, to travel all over the country, telling people all over the world, telling people about what's going on. If you can do that for free, then you must have already made your money, or
Yeah.
somebody somewhere is paying.
Yeah.
Nothing is for free. And like you said, we're trapped. You're trying to get information out there to wake people up. I'm trying to do the same. If you give that information away, then the one problem is that it wouldn't be viable for us to do it because you've got bills to pay, because we are trapped. But secondly, if it's being given away for free, then surely by definition, the person reading it sees no perceived value.
It's a real tricky one, and like we've spoken at the same events, haven't we? The same
Yeah.
locations. You recently did one where I had done one, and you go to those events, but occasionally they will give you some of the money on the take-ins and stuff. But I've been doing this for a long time. I've never ever had any. Okay, I haven't promoted it to the point where I'm making lots of money like a lot of people I know that do. So really, if you're going to be trying to, so, well, I don't want to accept money because I feel bad about it, because there's something about this money thing. It can do tremendous things, but there's also another thing about it. It's almost like destroying us. So the dichotomy of money, that in one sense it can do great things with it, like the surgeon's scalpel analogy I gave, and at the same time it can destroy, and do terrible things. Depends whose hands it's in, right? I had this conversation with the great Gerald Salente of Trends Research one day about money. You can't poke a finger at the money and say it's that's destroying us. It's whose hands it in, and what people are going to do with that power, But yeah, I've struggled with that for years, and I've purposely haven't promoted myself purposely because I feel a bit bad about getting money off people or getting money for even what I do, And people, I shouldn't say people like us that are trying our best. And let's make it clear, everybody, we're not going around shaking people in the street saying, wake up, you idiot. That's dangerous and cruel. You shouldn't go around shaking people awake. You can do more damage than if you leave them. But I like speaking to people on the till in Tesco's more than like people speaking to some of the so-called enlightened beings that I know. Yeah, they're often the most difficult, pain in the spiritual ass people you'll ever meet in your life. Yeah? They're a bloody nuisance, yeah? They become so sort of full of themselves. And I'm so enlightened and I'm so this and I'm so wise, They're a bloody nuisance, most of them, I'd rather speak to someone, on the dustman that does the street. I love speaking to them. They're often the most wise, morally strict and sound, beautiful people that help other people, I mean, honestly, a lot of the people I know in our circles sometimes are a real bloody nuisance. They got carried away with themselves. I'm very humble. I don't put myself on any pedestals at all. I'm just this guy. This guy from Barry who paints pictures. I write. I talk about stuff, but I'm not this person going around saying to people, "You're awake. You're asleep. I'm awake." It's not the case at all. It's like it's a horrible burden actually to see this stuff. Thank you very much. It's torture to see this stuff and feel it. and recognize what's being done to humanity and how purposely humanity are being shafted and kept in poverty. It's a bloody disgrace. It's a crime against our spirits and our magnificence that the whole system isn't designed. If someone came from another realm, I've often said this guy, came in my shop and said, "Look, we've been watching you. Please help us to understand. It seems to us that it's all based on short-term greed, power, profit, debt, and slavery for people. Please tell us that can't be possible, Because it should be the absolute, complete, and utter opposite of that."
Yes, it should.
And of course,
it should.
Of course, it's not. And I've often given this analogy. You get some money out, and they'd say, "What's this?" Everyone's running around terrified about this, trying to get more of it.
Oh,
some people will kill someone for a £5, and then they'll say, "Who's that on there?" You'll say, "Well, that's the Queen." "Well, who's the Queen? Where does she live?" "In that big palace over there." "What's she done to get that?" "Well, she's killed people, taken over, stolen their jewels, and blah, 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 blah. So, look, I'm getting carried away, but the whole system's completely mental, right?
Have you ever read what's on the money?
Go
on
on.
the back of each note.
Guide me through it.
I'm going to have to do it now. I don't know if I've got one of each on me. No, I haven't. I haven't got a £20 note, so I might need your help with this.
Well, I've got this on this. It says £5. This is under his face. What was it? That magnificent guy.
Yeah, the bloke who carpet bombed Dresden.
Yeah, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. It's like, what?
So that's the £5 note, and that is symbolic of somebody who only has £5 having nothing to offer.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that quote's on there. It's to remind you, if all you've got is £5, you're worthless. You've got nothing to offer the system but blood, sweat, toil, and tears. Then when you move on to the £10 note, it says, I declare after all, there is no enjoyment like reading. You've got a bit more money, you're becoming a little bit more wise. Right. The £20 note, I can't remember, but the £50 note says, this is only a foretaste of what is to come and only the shadow of what is going to be.
Gee whiz.
So they're all there. They're purposely, those quotes are purposely put on our money to remind us, even while we're handling it subliminally, that if you've only got a £5, you're worthless. Right. If you've got £10, then, you're getting there. 20, okay, something positive's happening in your life. 50, you're enlightened.
Yeah. Wow. How about the front of it then when it says Bank of England? I promised to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5. What's that all? Tell me what about that. You've delved into this a lot,
Yeah, well, it's really actually Richard Vobes. It's a good friend of mine, and he's always telling me bits and pieces. Some of it goes in, some of it doesn't. And he was just basically saying that, and he's been saying this for a while, that it stopped paying years ago. The £5 note had metal, had silver, a thin piece of silver in the middle, and it was woven through.
I remember, yeah.
So it was worth something. That was the value. That was £5 worth of silver. And on demand, they promised to pay the bearer of that note the equivalent in sterling or gold or whatever. And that's gone now. That no longer exists.
Yeah.
That's gone. There is no longer, I promise to pay the back. It no longer is anything. It was a promissory note once upon a time. And obviously, started a Venetian kind of thing. And now it's actually worthless. That £5 note, the £10 note, none of it's worth anything. It's all fiat currency, and it's changed. That they no longer promise to pay anybody anything. It's completely worthless. It's an IOU from a corporation in the City of London, and it's probably worth a fraction of what it should be.
Yeah. But this gentleman, I'm telling you what, he's coming on my show, and we were talking the other day. He's doing better now. He's doing okay, but we were talking. He said, "Does money make you happy, Jason?" I said, "Well, you say, oh, money doesn't make you happy, but guess what? It certainly helps. I've been in situations where I've had to go in bins for food. I've had bailiffs. I've had all sorts of, you name it. I've been homeless. in different countries, you know. So if you've got money, it helps to be happy, you know. Now there's a lot of miserable millionaires and everything. I know that, but that is the most terrible thing about this stuff. It can dictate your what you can do. I mean, you know, when I met my wife Louise, when she introduced me to her mum and dad, bless her, I was like a jippo living in in an old motorhome, right? She had left her job, she moved in with me. So when she, you know, she, oh, hello, this is Jason. You know, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a window, was a window cleaner, but I'm on the dole now. Where do you live? Well, in that grubby old van outside with your daughter, right? Right? It's like, oh, come in. You know, it's like, what if she had said, hello, this is Dr. Johnson from the child. He's a surgeon in the clinic in London. Well, Dr. Johnson, Dr. Johnson. You know, so it's an awful, terrible thing that we're all judged by often what we've got. You know, Guy, and that is one of the nuanced tragedies of our system. If you haven't got any, you're in the shit. Let's be honest about it, right? Because I haven't had any many times. You know, when I was in Greece, one guy was giving me stuff out of bins because I didn't have food. This is many years ago, of course, but you know, each person is almost on the edge of the precipice. Most people, and that terrible anxiety and worry and fear. Will I get through another month? It's like a sword of Damocles hanging over most people most of the time. And I'll tell you, Guy, it's a tragedy and it's killing people. It's compromising people's souls, spirits, and lives. And it's a terrible thing. And it's somehow got to change, you know.
People should, I think, be listening to this and what you're saying and you know, jump on your website and start taking a look at what you're doing and buy the book. Get the book, because we've got to get through this. We can't. It's not like we can attack them with our pitchforks this time. You know, it's we're way beyond that. And if we're not careful, then we're going to wake up one morning and realize that we no longer have a passport. We don't have a vehicle. We're not allowed a pet. You know, we can't grow our own produce. Everything that we do is monitored, and we'll be checking in every 5 minutes to make sure, you know, we haven't done anything wrong or we haven't got a fine on its way. And has our bank account been suspended? Can we still access social media? Are we banned today because of something we did yesterday, like cross the street in the wrong place or didn't put our bins out on the right day? You know, this is where it's heading. And like you said, 1984 will seem like a comedy in comparison to where this is going. I wanted to sort of end this on something a little bit more wacky.
Go on.
And a bit of fun, I guess.
I'm quite wacky. Go ahead, yeah.
Of all of the conspiracy theories out there, what's your favourite one?
What, my favourite one that I think's good or my favourite one that I think's really bad?
Either. The one that would stop you if you walked into a bar and you're on your own and there's a couple of people you don't know stood at the bar and they bring this particular conspiracy theory up, you're not going to be able to help yourself. You're going to have to say something.
I'm probably the wrong guy to ask, really, Guy. I'll be honest with you, because I'm, as you know, in my shop is a perfect example. In my shop, I get every type of person in there you can possibly think of, right? And I mean that, from Jehovah's Witnesses trying to convert me to reborn Christians, to people who want to convert me to Islam, flat Earth, round Earth, everything in between, and so many other things. We're not even solid. We're lizards. We're from another higher dimension. We're controlled entities. You name it, right? I get it in my shop, right? And often I get overlaps. There'll be one person come in who I know and another person I think, oh shit, this is bad. This isn't going to go down well, you know? So it can be quite incendiary as well. But quite frankly, honestly, a Guy, I respect everyone's views, right? You know, whatever it's about. But I don't like being pushed around and someone trying to, you know, make me feel bad, you know? So I respect everyone, Guy. I really do. And, you know, whoever they are, wherever they are, but if they attack me physically, they're going to get it, right? So I can tell you right now, because I'm quite good at karate, right? I'm not saying, I tell people I have to protect myself, right? If I was a little tiny sort of, you know, little guy going, ooh, I'm sorry, do you know what? I'd get browbeated and pummeled in Totnes, and people would be coming in my shop and shouting at me, honestly. So I do purposely tell people, I'm quite good for 63, and I won't be pushed around. And if you take the piss out of me, I'll tell you off, right? So back to your question, Guy, it's a tricky one for me because I respect everyone, even if I think they're not right. Yeah, I won't attack them, and I won't try and have a little thing about it. I won't, because look, people wouldn't look through bloody Galileo's telescope, would they? And all this kind of thing, all these kinds of nuances. And when I always come back to the same thing, we're not solid under a microscope, guys, and nor is that table, right? So start there, and I get people coming and talking to me who've died, for God's sake. So you would say, no, you don't, you liar. Well, I do, let me tell you, right? But that's another whole thing. A lot of people wouldn't believe that. But with
Now,
me,
expand on that, Jason. What do you
well,
mean? You're not talking about someone that's died on the table, operating table,
no.
for a few seconds. You're on about people that have actually died.
Yeah, well, I've done. Look, again, I don't talk about this. I used to do shamanic work and sessions, in Totnes actually. I used to have posters in town, and soul retrieval, healing, this kind of thing. So I've had my mind open to many things, guys. Believe me, I've been attacked by someone from a distance. Yeah, brutally attacked. Yeah, physically hurting me from a distance. Now, I would never believe that was possible, Guy. If you had said that to me 40 years ago, I would have said rubbish, impossible. No one can touch me, from a distance. You out of your mind, But it happened to me, and it was real. So when I talk about things like this, it's like it's a very strange thing, because when people try and convert me, for instance, if the Jehovah's come in, for instance, and they say, listen, you won't be saved to this and that, and I try and remind them in the nicest possible way that words and books and writings and stuff, I'm coming back to what you're going to say, is basically the theology. It's the intellectual overlay. It's just words, or those words can point you towards something more powerful in yourself, or some kind of experience, or put you in amongst a group of people who can help each other, etc. But you've got to remember, they're still words. It's like a map. And you can get stuck in the map and become fanatical about the map, and then tell everyone else, your map's right, theirs wrong, and I'll kill you if you don't agree with me. That's most of the problem in the world, right? There's no borders, But real, for me, real religions, for example, is experiential. It's experiential. It's, for me, it's not words. I've had tremendous experiences, Guy, back to sort of what you said about hearing people that have died, yeah?
Yeah.
And I've had things, I'll give you an example, okay, which isn't quite hearing people when you die, but I can tell you, a woman came to me once, and when I was still doing the shamanic sessions, which I don't do anymore. It's too much of a responsibility. And before she came, she didn't believe that it was true. So before she came, I just sat quietly on my own, and I thought, what can I say to this lady? And I had a picture in my mind of someone twisting her arm behind her back, her screaming, and her arm snapping. I thought, wow, was that just my imagination? Well, so when she came in, I said, look, before we start, can I ask you something? And this is not profound. I know shamans who've had much bigger things than this. Did anyone ever twist your... And as I said it, she went, and she rolled her sleeve up, and her left arm, which was the arm I saw being snapped, had all plates in it and scars. She said, yes, my boyfriend did. So when that happens, Guy, that's not my imagination. Oh, okay, it's my imagination, but that's experiential. It's not words. Like, I could read that if someone told me, like if you told me, I could believe you or not believe you. But when it happens to you, unless you're completely psychotic, on drugs, or out of your mind, then that does something to you. And when I was practicing the shamanic stuff and doing things, you can leave your body and you can go to other realms, and you can come back with information that you would never have known, yeah? Or you can get an intuition come in, like a word, and you don't know what the word is, and you will look it up. I've had a lot of these things happen to me, Guy, and one of the things, I could go on about this all night. I know we haven't got time, but I've had many things, and I was deeply touched by other realms of reality when I was in Greece. I wasn't drugged. It came through into me. David Icke had a similar thing. Came right up through my body. I was surrounded by an intelligence like you can't even explain. it's so profound and real that it made me cry. And I was just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm a big guy. I don't cry easy, but I was surrounded and I was touched. Now, you could say, well, what was it? I could expound on that, but in a nutshell, for people, it'd be like I knew there was other things going on, and I had some proofs, and it just said whatever you want to call it. People say, "Oh, it's the devil if you don't call it God or Jehovah." But anyway, let me tell you. So it's like it just went. Feel this, Jason. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay. We can't give you anything else because you'll faint. Right. But there's a little whiff. There's more realms than you can see. Okay. That'll prove it to you. And then I've had things where people, many times I'll get things coming through. I was in the shop one day. There was a guy, his mother had died, and a name came into my mind, right, as an example, okay, of proof. I knew this guy's son, and he came in the shop, and he was talking about his grandmother who died, or his wife or something. And I had a name come into my mind. Can't even remember what it was to this day. But I couldn't say, what's her name, Mavis? I can feel her coming through. You know what I'm trying to
Yeah, yeah.
I don't do things like that. It's too much of an encroachment. So I'm a bit ashamed of it, but I lied to find out if it was true. I said, oh, yes, your son, he was talking about someone. Was it, Mavis or whatever it was? Yes, he said. Now, how did I know that? But people could say, oh, well, you read his mind. But I didn't. It was thrown into my mind. And many other examples like that when I've met shamans and this and other healers and stuff. So that's in a roundabout way what I'm saying. I'm not here to show off about that. It's nothing. We've all got those abilities. They've been shut down and choked off and switched off. We're all telepathic. Many of us have had these experiences where you think about someone and they ring or things like that. We are Ferraris, everybody, in neutral. Get it? We're Ferraris in neutral because we've been choked off from our tremendous. And do you know why? Because these people in positions of power, call them what you want, the Illuminati or the bad ones, do you really don't think that they know how tremendously, what abilities we've got, And we're all busy worshipping them. Look, take the Pope. Don't talk about the Pope, Jason. The Pope's up there and everyone's crying and, well, show us a few miracles then. If he could turn some wine into, water into. So we're worshipping people who aren't, what I'm trying
to. Yeah, they're false prophets. We were warned.
We've been warned by biblical stuff. Listen, everybody, you're the shamans, you're the gods. That's what we've got to do. If someone said to me, what's the greatest threat to humanity? It's not nuclear, it's our own minds and the lack of us tapping into that tremendous power within ourselves. And I'll be called a nutcase for saying things like this. They'll say he doesn't know about that, right? But I'm telling you, the greatest threat to humanity is our minds. Why? Because most things manifest from mind.
Yes.
So
yes.
Most things you see around you started with a thought. You can say, well, we didn't, not us. Yes, you did. Your mum and dad looked into each other's eyes and they had to make a few jerking motions, and you bloody well are. I'm bringing it down to the base camp level. But if you look at a house, someone started thinking, well, I'm going to build a house or a row of shops or Totnes High Street. It all started as a thought made manifest through action. But we can do that with manifest miracles globally. But we've got to remember first, the greatest thing is the remembering, the unraveling, the great power that we've got. And that's what I'm going to be talking much more about now. I'm sick of talking about government and stuff. Let's talk about solutions. Let's talk about remembering, dismembering. We've been dismembered, everybody. And believe me, we've got to get back. We've got to come home. We've got to come back to ourselves first, or it's pointless. We'll just make more mess. We've got to find that wonderful magnificence within our minds. And it starts by nothing. In the nothingness, you'll find the somethingness. Empty your minds. Find the peace first.
That was very motivational. That was very passionate as well. Yeah, no, thank you.
You can't do it.
Thank you, Jason, and thanks so much for chatting with me as well. I really appreciate it. So your websites again, jasonliosatos.com and natural earth ecoliving.com.
.com, yeah, that's the two, and then jasonliosatosart.com, which is I'm a couple of different people. People say you shouldn't overlap what I do with my art. I'm lots of different things, and so are you all. So, when we were saying about just a quick thing, like you said about the pub thing and what do I do? I have to be like a chameleon, because I get a lot of people coming in the shop, and sometimes I don't want to debate flat Earth, or I don't want to debate round Earth.
Yeah.
I've got I've got lots of things that I could say to people to debunk this or debunk that or whatever. But quite frankly, I'll be really honest with you, guy. I haven't got the time or the energy anymore to get into these conflicts. I said to someone in the shop, he walked out once and told me to fuck off, right? Excuse me. Delete that out. He said, it's flat. It's flat. I said, look, flat, round, square, bloody oval. It's a mental asylum. Let's sort that out first. Let's sort out our minds first. Then worry what shape it is. So, there's a lot of different things, but I think we got to all be very careful that we're not divided and conquered further, because we're all, people say, well, that's wrong. That's right. Listen, it's all grunts from a voice box. That's all it is. Whatever you say, let's get back home to our magnificent spirits, and I believe we all got to almost have soul retrieval now, because we've been dislocated on a soul level, and bring back that magnificence within ourselves, and that's what I get excited about.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I really appreciate you talking to me. It's been a little while, hasn't it? I mean, this is going up on YouTube, and they weren't friends. Yeah, they weren't friends with you, were they? You had a bit of a falling out. So,
well, the thing is, Guy, look, they warned me many times, because don't forget, back then, that was a long time ago, really. Now it seems like a long time ago. The final nail in the coffin was when I did it was like a mini documentary type thing. Well, it was just, I went interviewing people on the big march in London. I was backstage there with David. Like, I was supposed to speak at that day on there. I was going to speak, I think I was. But there was Kate Sheminardi, David, Mark Steele, all the troublemakers, all the trouble exposers, I would call them. And I was back there filming and everything, and it was a lovely day. And when I came back, I had interviews with all people in the street and stuff. And that was the final thing. It was all gone. My many years of work on YouTube disappeared. My great interviews, I've got them all backed up, but I don't know how many subscribers I had, maybe 50,000, which isn't a lot really, but it was all just gone, So yeah, I am still. People say you should try and get it back, but I do hold grudges sometimes. So it's almost like I'm not going to grovel back to the same people that kicked me in the teeth, might cut my nose off to spite my face, but maybe I should. But well, and BitChute's just gone down in England. That's gone.
Yeah.
So where's left? So and this is very similar to what we're talking about on a final thing. We've got to create new systems independent of government control before they shut everything down. You won't be able to have any choices.
No.
My dad would say, bless your dad, he'd say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what you got to worry about? Well, that's not the point. Yeah.
You're quite right. That is not the point.
You might not want to do what you're told, man, especially if it's not good for you, So it's a big subject, but it's been great speaking to you guys. I have become quite animated, because often on my show, I'm just chatting to people and they speak. So when someone invites me on their show, it's like boom.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you coming on. I know you don't give many interviews, so I do appreciate it. But thanks again, Jason. And what I'll do is I'll put in the description, I'll put a link to your websites.
Thanks, man.
And I'll find your book on Amazon and put a link there as well.
Nice one, Guy. And come on my show, Guy. I'd love to ask you about all the things you talk about, Tartaria and everything. I'd love to hear all about that. Yeah, and you can.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, and then I'll shut up and you can speak.
Thanks again.
All the best. Well done, everybody. Remember how magnificent you are. Don't hold back. You are amazing, So be everything you can be.
Nice one. I'll cut it there. Thanks, mate. I really enjoyed that. That was brilliant.
That's it, Guy. Look, I love pontificating as well, and trying to just remind people of how powerful they are, And I think that's the greatest sadness for me, is that we've all been choked off from our and we're frightened to be who we are. We don't know who we are anymore. It's like this is a tragedy, mate, But maybe we ought to get this bad to get back there. I don't know, I'm not one of these people.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I think it's got to get really fucking bad. It's bad enough, but I think to turn the average person in the street from being on the fence or a fucking sheep to fully waking up, we're going to need something else. 2020, I think, like I said earlier on, I think that pushed a few people that were on the fence, pushed them over. There's going to be a few more people out there that it will just take one thing and they'll buckle and they'll say, do you know what? They can fuck off.
Well said.
That's what we need to do.
What worries me, or excites me and worries me, Guy, yeah, is that it's like I think humanity is like on the M5, whatever country you're in, you can't get off, man, to something else, yeah. So I've always given this analogy: if we can create systems, Guy, where people can come off that motorway and go somewhere else, which is much cheaper, much more harmonious, much more power giving, and their families can also do that, and they can live it in another way independent of these bloody madmen. So if they say, right, we'll cut your fucking bank accounts off if you go and do that, well, guess what? We've got so much food we can't eat it. We've got water. We've got so go and fuck yourselves, right? Yeah. So, but I think at some point they won't let us do that. So I think, oh God, if we just I'm having meetings here, Guy. I'll tell you all about them. There's another lady from Dubai coming back now. She's an amazing woman, actually. She's just moved to Totnes. Another woman came in my shop. Something's happening, mate. Yeah. Something's happening. And that guy I told you about who helped me, he said at a critical time in human history, people will be brought together like by magic. And I'm telling you, Guy, it's happening now. People are coming in the shop. It's like, something's happening. Yeah, something's happening. Yeah, for sure, man.
So you've been chatting to Elizabeth, haven't you?
Of course, Elizabeth, your friend.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes, no, the fact that you put me in touch with Elizabeth was no coincidence at all, And she's like she feels like us, an urgency to change things, And but I don't know. I still don't know how it's going to happen. Another lady came in from Cape Town. She's an amazing woman. She's all buzzing about things. So maybe it's about timing, Guy. Maybe the timing wasn't right before. Maybe it is now. Well, we'll soon see. Because I do believe that it'll happen in its own time. But we've also got to give it a nudge and be a part of that as well. It's a bloody awfully tricky thing, and it fucking pisses me off. I'll be honest with you. It's Christ is frustrating almost, and know that we need to change something.
Yeah,
it's a very tricky thing, Guy, mate. I'll tell you now, but we'll see. I don't want to leave this plane of reality and know I didn't do my absolute best for people who haven't been born yet. That's my torture. Yeah, is lying dying and thinking I didn't try hard enough. I could have done. This is a dreadful burden to carry.
I want to carry. I'd like to walk into a school. Well, I'd like to be in a position where I could change education, and I would just like to walk in a school, walk into an A-level history exam, and take their papers and tear them all up and say, everything you've been taught is bollocks.
Wow. Yeah.
Now we're gonna start again.
Shit, man.
This is the truth. Read these documents, read this, read that, and there is no fucking exam because this is all pointless. and sort of make all of the history teachers out there redundant. And you're fucking lying to people. And maths, like, why aren't we taught about sacred geometry and the power of numbers? And we're taught how to do fucking pi r squared and shit. We're not. You could make maths so much more interesting if you said to someone, look, did you know, this is the fucking dimensions of, this is the circumference of the planet, and this happens to be the same calculation used to build the Great Pyramid of Giza. How the fuck did the people who built that pyramid know the circumference of the Earth?
Well, the Fibonacci series and
exactly. That's beautiful too.
Oh, fuck it! There's a flower in it's the national flower of bloody South Africa. The protea. The seeds. They're telling you things. They're like freaking hell, Like, I mean, I never forget that same guy I told you about. He said they teach mathematics wrongly. He was a massive mathematician when he was a kid, this bloke. He wrote books about it. I've got his books. I can't understand that from him. He's an amazing man. He just comes back. He comes and says things to me. He's gone long ago, but that's another story. But he said, look, he said, I was shit at maths, Guy. I had a special maths teacher who used to come to my house after school, and my dad left me a fiver to give him. In the end, I didn't answer the door and used to just go and spend it and get pissed, because I didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. He used to say, "Do you get it, Jason? X equals mine." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about, man. I don't get it." Well, this guy said, like if you're teaching people about fractions, cut a loaf of bread in half, then in 2 bits more, that's quarters, then eighths. It's like, when he said that, I was like, oh my God. He said maths is taught wrongly in school. It should be an exciting language, not this mundane, terrifying thing. So, it's a dread. School it's terror. Pink Floyd said, school is just the same brainwashing sausage machine, and until we stop that, almost nothing's going to change.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
It churned out into the same jobs, same fear, same paradigm, same system. But it's a fascinating thing, Guy. It really is, mate. It's an amazing thing. And well, here we are to talk about it. I don't know what to say about it. I could just go and live in Greece or on an island and never utter another word about it. It's like, that's it. Get on with it. Go to hell in a handbasket. I've tried my best. Stuff the lot of you. So, but we can't do that because we wake up every morning knowing why we're here, knowing who we are. And that's beautiful. We know who we are. We're not these ego trippers, Guy, who want glory and want people to say how wonderful we are. I'm the bloody last person like that. But we're there for human beings. Bloody hell, what a burden, man. So we know why we're here, and we gotta play our role out, man. And it's not easy, not in this situation we're in,
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. Yeah, no, I do. My brother says to me all the time, how do you manage to be focused, positive, or even fucking happy when you're constantly researching shit that's bad, and people are bombarding you with more information on how we've been fucked over and people being killed and poisoned and this, that, and the other. He said, you must be just constantly surrounded by fear and doom. And I said, yeah, I am. But the great thing about it is I share that information with people, and the more people that read it and go, fucking hell, I didn't know the bastards were doing that as well. It's like another one's moved over and joined us. And that's positive. When someone messages and says, fuck me, that post, or I've just read your book, or I saw your YouTube thing, and I wasn't sure, but now you've convinced me. All I needed was to hear that, and that's given me the push. Yeah. I think I've just woken someone else up who will not be queuing next time there's a pandemic and a medical intervention offered. They won't be in that queue. I think that's good enough, isn't it?
Bloody right. And you know what? I think there's something I wish I'd said on your show now, and it's something I say every time I talk like this, but I almost said it, but it was a slight nuance I left out. And that is when someone comes in my shop and they say, I'm so depressed, and you say, well, that's exactly how you should feel, right? Because that's a natural symptom from a healthy spirit, body, and mind that's in the system that's driving it mad. What I forgot to say, which for me is the absolutely best thing to say after you've said that, is you say, well, so it's not your fault that you always felt depressed secretly, right? You always knew there was something wrong. They say, well, I never felt right in this system. You mean that's why? Because it's based on slavery and it's designed to keep me dulled? You mean that's why I felt so frustrated all these years? Yeah. So when people come in, what used to come to my shop years ago, Guy, they used to say, I don't want to talk about anything negative. You shouldn't read the newspaper. You shouldn't look at anything negative. It's depressing. No, it's not depressing. Once you realize how it works, it's liberating because it makes you realize why you didn't feel quite right all these years.
Yeah.
That's the key. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the liberating part of it. It's like, fucking hell. Of course I was depressed.
Yeah. It's a light bulb.
I'm a slave breaking rocks for these bloody bastards who are paying me tiny, and I'm paying for water, food, and clothing and housing. So, I mean, these are the obvious bloody truths, but sometimes I feel like, and that's what my book really is, it's just obvious truths. At the beginning, I said, if any of this sounds like wisdom, remember that wisdom is just forgotten common sense. Yeah. That's what it is. So, it's just, but it's time now, and but I'm tired as well, Guy. I'll be honest with you. I've been doing this for ages. It's like I can't even be bothered to say another word. That's the truth, honest to God. I don't know where it's all going. I don't know what's going to happen, but we've got to keep going, man. We've got to keep. Yeah. We've got to keep going. We have.
Yeah, I agree. Just keep fucking going, mate. I'm going to love you and leave you now. I need a piss and a fag.
Nice one. I might have a bit of my CBD oil. We'll see. Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Oh, it's been bloody great speaking to you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I've been very gobby, but it's because when
Oh,
I'm unleashed on someone else's show, it gives me a chance to say everything I want to say.
no,
So,
I think it's nice because and that was the idea of it. I want to get people on and get them talking about something other than what I talk about all the fucking time. And no, what I'll do is I'll edit it tomorrow, and then I'll pop it up on YouTube over the next couple of days, and I'll ping you a link to it as soon as it goes live.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
ping you a link straight away.
I'll do that, and then if with your permission, I'll stick it on my show
Yeah,
and the YouTube. I don't know how I'll do that because normally I don't know how I'll do it. I'll find out a way of doing it. Yeah, but it'll be great to have it on my website as well, so they can go and see it.
yeah,
And go to your work, and I'll stick links underneath to your show, and we'll have a chat on my show. I'd love to hear everything about Tartaria, and I've
yeah. No, just tell me when. I'll be
yeah,
there.
man. Like next week or something, we'll do it.
Yeah,
And it'll
I'll
be
be up
good.
for that.
Well done for everything you're doing, mate. Honestly,
Thank you, and you, mate, and you,
that's
and enjoy the rest of your night.
nice one, mate.
Take care,
I'll see you
Jason.
soon, mate. All the
See
best.
you,
Lots of
mate.
love to you, mate. Take care, man.
Bye for now.
Bye, mate. Bye, bye.